So this happened to a few kids from my school that happened sometime in 2016 in the summer. They were visiting England with their family as they were visiting relatives there, and they have done a lot of crazy adventures. Now, the main person, which happens to be his name being Nathan, was from the United Kingdom, and he was about 17 when this took place. So, it was 2016, and he used to love this one popular place called Camelot. For those of you who don't live in the UK or don't know, Camelot was a theme park. No, pretty much is about the medieval times and even takes place during the history of the King Arthur. However, the park unfortunately shut down in 2012 and it has been left abandoned for years. However, for those who had grew up in the 1990s, well, 1980s to like around 1990s, you probably have remembered this. However, though, there is a lot of reasons as to why the park had been pretty much abandoned, but however, though, there was a lot of there was reasons because of probably bankruptcy or something. It wasn't really the actual case, but however, that was honestly something that a lot of people really don't understand. Now, in Camelot, this was a pretty popular place at the time. So, Nathan and a couple of his friends decided that they would explore the Camelot theme park that is located in the US, well, United Kingdom, um, around, around Charnock, Richard Corley, Lancaster. So, they decided to do it sometime in the daytime as their parents were out doing stuff. This is when the great opportunity, when Nathan and his friends decided to go and adventure the theme park. So they left shortly after that the parents had went out. So that was when Nathan and his friends decided to go to Camelot theme park. Nathan knew where it was as he used to go there a lot of times when he was a kid in the summer times. So he really knew where it was. So when he got there, he parked his car at least close to the front as possible in the driveway. There was luckily nobody there, but there had been instances where some security guards had escorted some people out due to them trespassing. There was no security guard there, so this was honestly the best opportunity for Nathan and his friends to explore. There was a lot of overgrown and stuff, even though the Camelot had been closed down for a long time. Of course, during the British times when it was closed down, a lot of people have their ways of sneaking in. Of course, that's when the air felt ominously cold, even though it was kind of weird since it was the summer. Nathan and his friends had ventured deep in the theme park, and they even looked around to see a bunch of stuff such as graffiti, the garbage, etc. It wasn't until Nathan all of a sudden, with his friends, felt the air ominously cold. They honestly couldn't understand it as it was the middle of the summer and it wasn't supposed to be cold. They all of a sudden heard what sounds like of children's shoes scuffling around against the ground as they made their way inside of Camelot. However, they ventured more in the theme park. Each of them got anxious. The colors had become more dull, and the details made the environment appear to be almost lifeless. That's when they started noticing the feeling of something hovering over around them. Of course, one kid took a step out to pull out his phone to call something, but before he could, a loud ringing noise filled the air. It was like nothing they've ever heard. Startling back into the abyss of the theme park, all they could hear was deep, unnerving void. Of course, they were frozen, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, they looked over to see that there was a figure that appeared about 50 feet or so away from them, dressed in what seemed to be a conja and a crown of gold on top of his head. Of course, he appeared to be walking, didn't even notice them. Of course, that's when the kids ended up scrambling around and they left the theme park. As soon as they got away from the theme park, they headed back back towards the cars where they drove off into the night. When they got back, they honestly didn't tell their parents about it as they were just afraid that they would get in trouble for trespassing. Nathan and his friends did not know who or what that was in the theme park, but they really have no idea if it was paranormal or not. Still to this day, they don't ever plan to return to the theme park to find out who or what that was. So this took place sometime in 2002, I think around that time. That was around the time when Canada's Wonderland had this park called the Hanna-Barbera Land Theme Park. Honestly, I was a young kid at the time of this story, so my parents used to take us there a lot. It was something we've already done. Of course, Chris, this is when a lot of things got really crazy. When I was at one of the rides, of course, there was a lot of other kids who were on the rides. I can't remember what it was, but I believe it had to be a Scooby Doo themed ride or something. However, as a lot of things were going on and we were pretty much going on, as we were playing at the park, I was riding the rides and stuff. Everything seemed normal. However, it wasn't until when my dad ended up noticing that there was a man that he'd never seen before. Obviously, he and my mom had thought that maybe it could have been, well, maybe just a parent of some sort, but he didn't look like he had a kid with him. Honestly, when it was my turn to go on the ride on one of them, my dad took me on it while my mom was just standing around waiting to take my brother on the, well, character ride, which is the carousel. I was on Dino. Yeah, you probably know Dino from the Flintstones. And we were going around and I just sat on him when the ride had started. However, as my dad was there, I he ended up seeing that there was this man with a camera starting taking photos. Honestly, he was taking photos of people and he thought that maybe he did have his kid on the ride. But however, this is when it got strange. After the ride had ended, the man walked away when all of a sudden two men said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Eventually, this man had to explain that he was taking photos of his child, but obviously these people weren't falling for it, so they confiscated his camera. This is the part when things got weird. This man was escorted out of the park shortly afterwards, and it turns out that he had done this to other parks by taking photos of children's faces and zooming in on lots of places. Honestly, my dad asked if I was included in any of the photos, which thankfully that wasn't the case. I was a kid at the time, so I didn't know that. But, however, this wasn't really the type of story to make you jump out of your seat, but it's definitely one that made me really unsettled. And this has given my dad and me, and as well as my mom, the message is to always watch your surroundings, because you never know who or what is there. This happened sometime on a field trip, sometime in 2015 when I went to Canada's Wonderland with my mom as well as my brother and a few friends of ours. It was a school trip, so we got to see a lot of stuff. It was unfortunate that Planet Snoopy took over the place. What I mean by unfortunate is because Hanna-Barbera Land and Nickelodeon Central was pretty much no longer there. But Planet Snoopy was actually pretty nice though too. I got to explore a bit of that area. However, this story was definitely one that I really have to say I didn't really quite expect it. Now, to make a long story short, when I was at the park, it was when I was playing at the splash hash zone or the water park section. Everything seemed to be going well when with me doing my own thing. I was basically going on a couple of rides, mainly ones that involved the water. However, though, as I was going on one of the rides, I ended up noticing that there was this man that seemed to be maybe in his 30s or late 40s. He honestly looked really old. He walked up to a woman, well, a girl actually. She was around maybe 7 or 8. He had said to her that he had ice cream at the back of his truck and that he can go with her. That is when, and the biggest thing happened. This girl was walking with this man out of the park, and I was going to try and get involved, but however, I was slowly following them just to make sure. Sure, I was around 16 when this happened, but however, though, it was definitely something that I really never expected to see at the park. This is when things got really weird. Of course, it wasn't until a few security guards saw the man and say, "Hey, what are you doing with her kid?" He honestly let go of the kid and ended up trying to get away, but ends up getting escorted out of the park by the cops. This is when things got really weirded out. This is when the woman comes up and grabs her daughter and has a personality of a teddy bear that basically says stay the hell away from this from my kid. Honestly, it turns out that this man had been luring kids outside of his house. This wasn't the first time that this happened, as he had tried to escort kids and has kidnapped them in the past. Honestly, this honestly freaked me out because I had no idea who this man was. But of course, he ended up getting arrested shortly after that. And I have no idea who he was, but I am just glad that no one was kidnapped at that park that year. Even though it still terrifies me to this day of being snatched or someone I knew being snatched. But this comes to show always keep an eye on your kids pretty much anywhere because anyone could snatch them up. You just don't know when that will be.